Hey guys, thanks for being here for season 4, episode 3 of the Through Their Eyes podcast. This is a podcast, a part of the Scattered Abroad Network, a group of podcasts that make up daily content for you to consume as you're driving to work, folding the laundry, doing the dishes. I almost said folding the dishes. That would have been kind of awkward if you did that. Unless you have paper plates, then you could probably do that. But we want you to be able to kind of kill two birds with one stone, have the opportunity to study while you're being, engulfed in the hustle and bustle of life. This particular season of the Through Their Eyes podcast, which is done to give our hosts a break, we've been talking about the minister files and covering the idea of balance and looking at different things in life that need to have a balanced approach. As always, I'm the Director of Operations and your host, Michael Clark. I have with me here to my left, your right, doesn't matter, or my right, your left, Wayne Rogers. It's been a long day. We're tired. We're here, though, with Wayne, who is Director of Programming, and not just saying this, I promise, one of my favorite people to work with. We've spent quite a lot of time together. He was involved in the very first planning session that became the Scattered Abroad Network as we know it today. All we really knew was an idea, and then we went and talked with him, and rest is history. We have Jonathan Burns. Jonathan, go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome to the podcast. Let everybody know who you are.
Well, my name is Jonathan Burns. I preach at the Finley Church of Christ in Sparta, Tennessee. Been with Scattered Abroad since the beginning. Do not all the video work, but a lot of the on the road video work with the mobile studio and things of that nature. But I'm just an eccentric guy. That's kind of how I would describe myself.
Absolutely. Used to own a movie theater?
I was the youngest owner of a drive-in movie theater in the United States for a while. So yeah, I've done some stuff.
Yeah, we always love having you on the show. I know some of you watching probably are thinking, well, now we can't wait till Thursday, because they know if you're on this program, you're also going to be on Did That Really Happen? And some of our most downloaded episodes have been with you involved in them. Yeah. But Derek's also involved with them. So if the downloads go down, Derek
will know.
You can kick rocks. We'll that's our theme slogan for this season, apparently. We love Derek Coble. He was busy with some things, couldn't make it on this occasion, but look forward to having him back too. So we're talking about balancing leadership life. Now, full cards on the table, everybody on the same page. We have never been an elder, either one of the three of us. To my knowledge, have you ever been a deacon?
No.
You ever been a deacon? I haven't either. So we've never been a deacon either. But we have been members before. We were preachers, and now we serve as preachers. And two of us at this time that are here are still currently involved in local work. At this time that this episode is airing, though, two of us will no longer be involved in local work. So this was a great time to get this episode recorded before it was kind of, why are these three talking about it? Just let Jonathan do it. He's the only one in it still. There is a balance that comes with this. And so when we look at this ebb and flow that's supposed to happen, how is the balance of the leadership in the church supposed to flow when it comes to elders, preachers, deacons, members?
Well, I'm tempted to say, well, let's start off in 1 Timothy, and then let's go to Titus, and then let's go to the book of Acts. But I think most people that are listening to this program, they know about the qualifications of elders and the qualifications of deacons. And they have seen, if you walk through the book of Acts, we're doing this at Finley right now, they've seen these men to serve in special places, which is deacons. They've seen elders appointed in every church in every city of which they went through. So they've seen all those things. And if you've grown up in the church or you're newly a member of the church, you've probably studied about these things. Matter of fact, at Finley, we're going through a foundational study right now, covering some of these things again. So I'm tempted to do that, but also I'm tempted just to take it in a practical way, because when elders lead, a congregation will follow.
Amen.
And that is true of any organization, whether you're talking about Fortune 500 companies, you're talking about Scattered Abroad Network, house to house, heart to heart, a local congregation. When the leadership sets the tone, that is the tone.
Yeah.
And I have found where I'm at, I have 4 elders. We have 18 deacons, and we have 1 preacher. We recently added 7 deacons. We're in the search right now for at least 1 more elder. We're taking this entire year to look at every man at Finley and say, all right, who's coming up? Starting January 2025, we're going to be really hitting it hot on a couple of men to make sure we are progressing forward in the growth of that department, the leadership of that department. So it's a proactive thing. But when I think about it, I think about elders. And elders, we've heard this so many times, they don't sit in the boardroom. They are among the people. And that's true about preachers. I sat back behind the scenes a minute ago and listened to Cliff talk about studying and all that. Wonderful. And that's the same thing there, among the people. Same thing's true about deacons.
Yeah.
Deacons can't just serve off in the corner. They've got to be among the people. Same thing about members. You can't be a member and stay at the house all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people, and I don't like this either, their health declines, sickness strikes suddenly. Sometimes we have to stay at home. But we have to be, as people of the church, among the church. And when I think about leadership, that's where it starts. It starts among the church. And I can think about things that have happened at Findlay and other places that I've served. That's the leadership style that works. Matter of fact, just today, I have talked to 2 of my elders on the phone of the 4. I have talked to another elder that's 5 hours away from me, called, had a question. Hey, what do you think about this? Talked to a man yesterday. Hey, we got this going on. There's the concept among the church, communication. If we can't communicate one to another effectively, and that's the problem. Sometimes we think we got it clear, but we didn't. So the leadership and the balance is the elders set the tone. The preacher, if you'll allow me to say it this way, he many times proclaims the tone. And then the deacons and the members, all with the elders and the preachers, they build up the tone. Because you can't have commands that come down and then the servants serve and the leaders sit cushy.
Right.
That's the conversation there in my mind, building it together. The church is together. So when I think about how the leadership goes, it goes in communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Before I let you speak, I always have to interrupt you, it's because I love you. But
That's why I always look under this.
It is interesting when you think about this idea of setting the tone. This is not original with me, but I was talking with a preacher friend of mine about, something else in regards to leadership. And I'm very passionate about leadership because that's where I got my degree. Yeah. And so I'm very involved in this idea of how does leadership supposed to work? How's it supposed to go? And this preacher I was talking to, he said, have you ever really seen a college football team really do well when they have 2 starting quarterbacks? And sure, there's some examples. I know Florida won a national championship when Tebow was sprinkled in and they had the other guy that was playing. I think it was number 10 at the time, but they weren't like actually both starters. They were obviously working in packages for Tebow. They weren't ready to put him out as a starter yet. And I know that there are some times where teams have 2 starting quarterbacks, but when there's a quarterback carousel that's going on there, the team is often divided because the quarterback, whether you like it or not, he is typically seen as the leader of the team. And if he is not the only leader and his ideology and the other quarterback's ideology, they don't mesh, there's not real leadership and there's division and there's this divided labor of working and all of this. And you have some people on this quarterback side, some people on this side. I look at the leadership from a spiritual standpoint with the church. And much like you said too, with Fortune 500, with Scattered Abroad, with anybody, if there is a divided approach and not all a united front, it is trouble. It does spell trouble. But specifically with what we're talking about in the church, when 2 of the 4 elders say, we want to do this, and the other 2 say, we want to do this, and then they push and they fight and they do all of this stuff, that's an issue.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is worth considering from a secular nature first. You can't really name a ton of teams who have won national championships, and even Florida, there's an asterisk by it. You can't really give that to them either. And there's a reason for that. Yeah. And I think that's something worth pointing out, that even in a secular nature, once that happens, when you announce you got 2 starters, you can usually say, well, this season's going to be terrible.
Thank you for bringing up my team.
You're welcome. They did well. They won that time.
But then putting an asterisk on it. That's great. So it is what it is. I'll go back to what Jonathan said about the communication. And this is, in nearly 30 years of local work, where there has not been, when there's a breakdown of communication, because of that, what you said, you've got the elders setting the tone. And I like how you put it. The preacher is kind of proclaiming the tone. Because we're the mouthpiece. We're the ones, up in the pulpit, up in front of everybody most of the time, and so if we don't know what the tone is or what the direction is, if we're not given, the direction, if you will, from the elders. And a lot of times, we come in with ideas, but they're not they shouldn't just be our ideas to put out there. We present those ideas. We want the elders to kind of lead, make a decision. Are we going to do this? Are we going to go in this direction? Are we going to do this thing? And I'm not talking about doctrinally speaking. I'm just talking about ideas that are going to be implemented into the workflow of the church to begin with. And then, but if it's not communicated to the preacher, he can't go out and be the mouthpiece. If it's not communicated to the deacons, then they can't go out and deacon. They can't go out and do their work, and what they're doing is they're trying, their deacons are so vital to the work. And I love that. What a number of deacons. That's
18.
That's amazing, and so, but what they do that to me is so special is if they're good at what they do, they're grabbing, they're grabbing members, man, they're pulling everybody into the work. And the elders setting the tone for that, the preacher proclaiming the tone, and then the deacons are just grabbing everybody and saying, get into the harmony of this work, kind of get in here and understand what this is about. But if that communication is lacking, none of that gets done. And then you have people stepping over one another, doing different roles. And so when you have elders doing their work, preachers are able to do their work, and deacons are able to do their work, and every member gets on board, and it is wonderful. And then you can see growth, and then you can see people moving forward. Even if not numerically right off the bat, you're going to see people coming together, because congregation has to grow within and strengthen before they really are able to branch out and reach out. And so kind of piggybacking here, what the idea, this split idea, the split in focus. And so when you start thinking about where that leads, how much of a difference does it really make then when the leadership is split up in their own focus? And it could be doctrinally, it could be in other things that are going on too. So.
Well, I said this in January. I preached sermons on the eldership, on deacons. We're starting this process. We were focused on deacons, but I went ahead and covered all of it. What deacons are required, what elders are required, what the membership is in response to the elders, covered all of that. And in one of the sermons, I said, there are times when I disagree with the elders, not doctrinally. I said, and you're never going to know it. Because that division kills us. And in this question, it's the idea of how do they keep their focus from being split? At Finley, this is how it works for us. All of our elders, when I was hired on 2.5 years ago, were in full-time work. One has since voluntarily retired. His position was phased out and he took retirement. 3 still work. The one that has retired, he's my visiting buddy. We get to go during the day. We get to do things together. The others at work, I know I can pick up my phone right now and text our elder group and say, hey, here's what's going on. And I'll start getting replies from all of them. The communication again, that's kind of when I see these questions, balancing it, it's all about communication. And that's that deal. So how do they deal with this? Well, I have never looked at being a Christian as my Christian thing and my work thing and my home thing. And I think sometimes we've built that mentality. And if that's our mentality, then I'm going to put my Christian thing over here. And when I go to work, I'm going to live over here. And I can't figure out how to focus that. So if I'm solely focused on my outside work, then the church work is second place. Right. Then Christ is second place. So I've never looked at it that way. But in this idea, doctrinally or secularly, elders deal with all sorts of things. I talked to one of my elders today about our sprinklers, our fire sprinklers. And that happens from time to time. That's a secular thing. Right. Doesn't matter. We had to schedule a fire sprinkler inspection. I talked to one of my other elders about a doctrinal matter today and a secular matter of something that's going on. So I have found that with us, we just work. We just kind of keep in the same mind, in the same groove, and keeping those things together with communication, but also involvement. I have noticed, and I've been promoting this, I've been trying to promote this, and I've been saying little things from the pulpit. Everything we do, the elders and I, we're going to be there. Whether it's our youth, whether it's our young at heart group for our older members, whether it's something else, pushing these things to be together. And I've tried to push involvement because no matter what we do, we're a Christian whether we're at work or not.
Yeah.
We're a Christian whether I'm making a decision about fire sprinklers or not.
Right.
That's the idea. And I've tried to push that mentality because I don't know if y'all have ever done this. Just read through the book of Acts and try to read through it as if it were 2024.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not when they were in Rome, but what if they were in Chattanooga or if they were in Memphis or in Sparta? And that really brings it to life of how those things work together and that idea of pulling those things together back to that mouthpiece.
Yeah.
I don't get to determine the tone.
Right.
Now, one thing I'll say about where I'm at, I am blessed to be in every elders meeting. Now, there have been times where I didn't want to be in elders meetings. y'all know exactly what I'm saying. There have been times where you know something's coming down the pipeline and you don't want to be there. But they expect me to be there. Something that has happened at every elders meeting so far. They don't treat me as an elder. They treat me as the preacher. Mm-hmm. But they will, every person, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? I'm one of those people. Mm-hmm. And we are knit together. And that's why I think we've had the ability to grow over the last 2 years. Because there's not been a decision that we weren't aware of together. And we have kept that focus together. But I will say this, if we focus on our secular life, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. It's the only thing I worry about. Yeah. It's the only thing I worry about. And I don't see how that is possible, in my opinion.
Yeah, when I was in my my schooling on leadership, one of the classes I was voluntold to take was on effective communication in leadership. And the specific title of the class, though, was organizational communication. Yeah. But effectively, what we were told was, here's how to have effective communication. And it is incredible to notice the changes that we've even all at Scattered Abroad said, we should probably communicate more. Yeah. We should probably talk a little bit more and try to have the board meetings and try to have everything set up. And it's not that we weren't doing a good job before that, but it was just an understanding of this thing is growing. And if we don't communicate, like you just said about Finley, if we don't have our every decision knit together with the people that need to make them, we're in trouble. Yep. And if that's true for a small-time podcast network that is, by no means big time or anything like that, we're just trying to do our thing and find the way to get the Bible
and be effective.
Exactly.
That's the deal.
But if that's something that's true for us, how can it not be true for the church?
It is.
And I think it's interesting that you touched on this and then it sparked a thought with me. I agree. I've had elders meetings, in my time where I did not agree with what was said, did not agree with the approach, not doctrinally, but just decisionally. Just kind of like, I would rather us do it this way or that way. But the very first day I was in my elders meeting with this congregation I was working for, one of the elders said, listen, there are 5 personalities in this room, 2 preachers, 3 elders. All 5 of us will see eye to eye on a lot of things. We will not see eye to eye on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. When that happens, if a decision has to be made, when you leave this room, you back it. Yeah. No matter if you agreed with it or not. Right. If they came out the next day and said, we are going to go with a mustard-colored carpet. Yeah. Well, I don't like that. Yeah. And I don't know that many people would like that. But I had an understanding that even if I didn't like it, it's what was decided. Yep. And I'm not going to allow that division. And the preacher I worked with also did a very good service to me, and I returned the favor as much as I could to him. And anytime it happened, I made sure to do it. But he said his first Sunday preaching there, he said, now don't you go to Michael and try to get him to turn against me. And don't you dare come to me and try to get me to turn against him. Yep. We are united, a united front. And that made a tone setter because I've seen local works. You've seen local works. You've seen local works. I've seen these things where the head minister, the pulpit preacher, whatever the title is, gets into a scuff with the other preacher because they're not close. They don't do anything together. And when you have a situation where you are working with someone else, that division can be very palpable and it can be very, very easily seen. And so I appreciate all that you were saying about that because leadership sets the tone. And one of the number one things I learned in that class on communication, without effective communication, companies and organizations die. Yeah. And if they die, not that the church is ever going to be destroyed. We know that it won't. But if the congregation that was thriving dies, that hurts. especially if it went from 650 members to 400 members to 200 members to 150 on a good day to 135 after COVID. And now they're at 100. They're pushing it maybe.
And then to closed.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
It's happening.
And that's happening all over the place. And when it doesn't deserve to happen, because there are some places I think we could all just kind of be fair because they're not in front of us right now and we can be nice but firm. Some churches probably congregationally would do better to close their doors.
And some have brought it on themselves.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't intend it.
Right.
But their decisions
That's right.
sent the flood.
And when you don't have leadership, especially, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to not do it the way God set it up and be truly successful. Not to say that it's impossible or that it can't be done, but it's incredibly difficult and certainly provides a ton of problems. So this last question, you probably know why we had originally asked it. We were going to have a buddy on here with you who lived through this literally. And it's something that we don't see as much as we used to.
Yeah.
But I'm remembering like it was yesterday when we did season 1 and we had him come on and talk about church discipline. Derek Coble's congregation had a situation rise up where they had gone about the biblical approach. They'd gone about it from what the Bible teaches. It got to the point where withdrawal was needed. Yeah. And so they withdrew the fellowship that is exactly what the Bible teaches to do in Matthew 18 when someone is walking disorderly and walking in a sinful way. And boy, the news got a hold of a viral Facebook post and they just lambasted this congregation. Their phone number was being in disarray. I mean, it was a mess. They were getting threats. Yes,
phone numbers.
There were threats being made with. Wasn't there a bomb threat at one point?
There were credible threats.
Yes, I mean it was rough.
I learned this. I learned that I could talk to the FBI, the TBI, and local sheriff's department. My dad was one of the elders, so I'm getting this information from my parents. So I start making phone calls. I talked to the FBI, the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And what was impressive to me was they saw it as a hate crime to the church, which is not what I expected. I was set ready to fire and to get them in gear, but they were already, here's what we're doing, here's how we're taking it, and if this happens, here's what you need to have your parents do. Oh, I was blown away.
Wow. Well, and that's kind of the issue because obviously when churches do what's right, they're going to suffer.
Right.
So we've said all this to say this. Does the leadership have any part in the growth their congregation experiences or even the discipline that is required? Can there actually be, as some have tried to suppose, an approach that says church discipline doesn't work and leadership having a hands-on approach doesn't work? That's why the minister needs to do it?
I'm going to fight that for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm not an elder. And I'm not going to do the work of an elder. This past Sunday night, the elders asked me to make an announcement. I said, only if you want me to. And they said, you're already going to be there. It's perfect. Here's what you want to say. I said, then I'm good. And during that announcement, I said, and I'm not one of the elders. I said, but I was in that meeting and I support them. So I'm not an elder, number one. So no, I should not be doing the disciplinary things. Number two, it's a command. It's a command. It's not a suggestion. Now, here's the deal. Does it need to be done appropriately? Yes. Have people tried their best and it come back to haunt them? I grew up at that congregation where this happened. Every year it haunts them. Not because they want to, because someone who wasn't involved made a Facebook post and it went viral.
Yeah.
Not even the person that was withdrawn from. Somebody that the withdrawn person knew made that post. And bless all of them in that situation. Hard situation. But I'll say this, when I was at East Hill, we went through the process of church discipline 3 different times. 2 of those people came back. One did not. The one that did not looked at me. I sat in his truck where the bus was supposed to be parked under an awning because he didn't want to come in the building to talk to me, but he wanted to talk with me. I said, listen, all you have to do is repent and come home and we can worship together. I'm not going to tell you what he did. I'm not going to get into all that. He looked at me and he said, but I like it more. I said, then you're never going to come home. And to this day, he's not. I wish he would.
Yeah.
But I know it works. I also know this when it comes to the congregational experience and congregational growth. Where I'm at Findlay, 2 different occasions something has happened. I preached on the 99 and 1. And we happened to have an elders meeting that day. And I just preached what I thought to be a regular sermon. Just want us to get the lesson that if you're the one, you want to have somebody come after you. And if you're the 99, hey, let's go after the one.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our elders said in the meeting, you know what we need to do? We need to go after the one. And we launched a program. We went through all past directories, who's not here. And we launched a congregational-wide writing and calling and visiting program. And that helped us grow. Preached a sermon on the book of James about how we should treat those who come into our services who might not be dressed as we are. Just so happened that morning, this broke out during class and I was involved and I had to run away from it. And I just let the elders handle it. And the whole time before the sermon got preached, hope they handled it right, hope they handled it right, hope they handled it right, because I was about to handle it right.
Yeah.
And they did. And everybody at that congregation, that whole sermon, knew that I wasn't preaching that sermon because of what they had just done, but because that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And they stepped up and they led. And I'm telling you, people noticed.
Yeah.
I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I noticed. And it works if we'll simply lead.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing. I've said this on the podcast before. I know I've said it on different shows, but I never preached a doctrinally challenging sermon or one of the tough stuffs without having an elder get up after and back it. Because I basically just told the elders politely, I won't do it if you won't endorse it. Mm-hmm. Because I know if I get up and preach it and I get done and I sit down and the congregation doesn't have the elders come up afterwards and say, you want to get to him? You got to go through us because we agree. Then I knew there'd be people coming to me and coming after me. And one of the most pleasant things ever is, though I had people sometimes disagree and though I had conversations there at times, most of those came from the elders telling me about it.
Yeah.
Because they knew they couldn't come to me because that would just defeat the point because the elders had just gotten up and backed me too. Yeah. And I think that's the idea of the communication, backing the brethren, and just understanding that, you know, on the day of judgment, those that are leading in the church are going to be held accountable for how that congregation did. Yeah. And I would hate to be a person that would say, we could have done more, but we didn't. Let's go after the one. Well, but we got 99 to tend to. Yeah. You know, a lot of us today, if we dropped a $5 bill, we may, if we're in a hurry, just keep going because it's just $5. But if we dropped a $100 bill, we're running right back to it. But Jesus says it's flipped. Yeah. You flip it the other way. You basically say, I'm not worried about the $100 bill that is in my pocket. I'm worried about the 5 that's not. And when we view souls for what Jesus told us they are, which is worth the whole world, when one person walks away, we've lost a world. Yeah. And I mean, could you imagine the terror if tomorrow morning the news was reporting that there was a world of people discovered and they were annihilated? Yep. I mean, just the hurt that would produce, and yet we let it happen every day. And we don't say or do anything about it. And so there's certainly, you know, a massive, massive burden of responsibility to do this. And I'm thankful for good elders. I'm thankful for elders that are willing to learn because no elder's perfect. Yeah. No preacher or member or deacon is perfect either. But I'm thankful that there are godly men out there that have this understanding of, here's how we do this. And there's an elder we both know very well. I never got to work specifically under him, but he served as an elder for so many years. And I don't believe he's serving as an elder anymore. But that man is one of the best examples of an elder I've ever known. And if I were asked, you know, kind of like we've said sometimes at the graduation ceremonies, who is the most outstanding student that we would send to the White House? If I were asked, what elder would you send to the White House? His name would be on my list. Mm-hmm. And that would be a list that I would very much like to create and craft, knowing, man, these are some of the best people I've ever known. And the question I think I would ask before I kick it to you for anything you want to throw in, if I'm an elder and I'm watching or listening to this, or I've heard about this particular show and I'm wondering, am I comfortable putting my name on that list? Myself, not because I'm arrogant or because I think I'm somebody, but would I be comfortable writing my name on the preacher list? Yeah. Would I be comfortable writing my name on the member list? Would I be comfortable if I were a deacon or an elder? If the answer is no, something got to change. we got some type of problem then. And so certainly the leadership is so important. And I've jumped in again on you. Do you have anything you'd like to contribute to this great discussion Jonathan and I have been having?
Yeah. I would just say the idea of leadership and what all of this pertains to, and thinking about not just right now, today in the church. You're talking about, what the efforts are at Findlay throughout this year, training for the future, and looking at these men and pushing them into these, pushing them in the sense of trying to train them into these roles, but pushing them in a sense in their faith, if you will. We've got to think about the next generation coming up as well. And, there's always a great effort, to train preachers, obviously, we're all passionate about that, because we've been trained, and we know that's certainly needed. But we've got to think of ways too for our young people to see elders, and especially those elders which we know, just as you mentioned, this good brother, but others that we can, that our young people can see in front of them, their influence, their example, the way they lead. Of course, we need the eldership to lead. I get that. But we need good, godly men in front of these young people to see what the church really can be and can do if these men are leading properly. And that not only causes the growth of the church, but it causes the younger generation within the church to see what they need to be doing, or what they need to be looking for, as they are going and leaving home and finding, another place to live and a congregation to worship, where they can worship, and elders who are going to oversee them, what they are looking for in those type of men. And so to me, this is vital for the health of the church, and in the local, thinking local, obviously, because we're talking about each congregation with its own eldership. But I think health-wise, thinking about the bigger picture of the kingdom as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jonathan, thanks for coming over, being a part of the show today. We're looking forward to Thursday as well, which is for us in like 5 minutes.
I have stories.
I know, I've got some for you that I think you're going to really like. And Wayne, we know we had to be here. I've been saying almost all season that Wayne had to be here, but we both had to be here. So you didn't have to be. So thank you for coming. I know it's a stretch sometimes to make the schedule work, and certainly we'll be praying for all the work you're involved in. Overjoyed to hear about how great Findlay's doing, and looking forward to seeing what comes from that later on too, with everything you've got planned. For those of you that have been watching and listening, we appreciate it. We're thankful that you've taken the time to study with us. We hope and pray that you'll check out the show notes below, which includes the description for all of the things associated with Jonathan and his work. If you're passing through Findlay, they'd love to see you. And also Wayne and myself, as Scattered Abroad Network is concerned, our information in the show notes, that's also able to be found. I don't know why I left Jonathan out. He's also a part of Scattered Abroad. But that information with our link tree, our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Substack, all of that stuff is available. You can find it below in the description on YouTube and in the podcast show notes. Thankful so much we are to House Studios as well for giving us the opportunity to be here. We have been spoiled by being here these last few days recording. We're thankful that they've given us a chance to be here. They have a ton of great content worthy of checking out too, as well as a ton of great material that can help your local congregation. If you don't know about House, you're missing out, and it would be really wise for you to go to their website. That'll be in the show notes in the description below. Lord willing, on Thursday, we'll be back here with Jonathan discussing some stories that did really happen, but you'll question whether they did or not at first. Until then, take care and God bless.